know I make you feel good. Don't you wanna feel good, good, good? Sometimes I wish that we could go back before you got hurt, hurt, hurt. When before I was scared, now I'm feeling prepared. Don't you wanna feel good? Don't you wanna feel good, good, good?
When you say you were leaving, I thought that you meant it. I played the victim, you start as indifferent. Hindsight comes standard with rose-colored lenses. Hate to admit it, you're better off. Now you're too afraid to look, too scared to miss it. We're night and day, solar eclipses. Too afraid to look, too scared to miss it. We're night and day, solar eclipses. Solar eclipses. Solar eclipses. Caught up in your gravity, always end up lost in your wake. Intoxicated, maybe we can start again. Caught up in your gravity, always end up lost in your wake. Intoxicated, maybe we can start it.
Maybe feeling change, I could remember all the reasons why we've been separate ways. Feeling all alone in your company, keeping you captive with busy chains.
We're night and day, solar eclipses. Too afraid to look, too scared to miss it. We're night and day, solar eclipses. Solar eclipses.
You wanna know my feelings every time I look in your eyes. Baby, I can feel your energy, it's making me realize everything we've been through makes us strong enough. You and I, you and I. Everything we've been through makes us strong enough. You and I, you and I.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in to the first RFDL podcast for Season 1. I'm Ecliptic Fades. I'm joined here by Aerolax, Docky, and Firestreak. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing good.
Doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, we are here to talk to you guys about everything and anything RFDL related. Tonight, big talking points. We're going to talk about the Combine stream a little bit. We're going to give you our predictions on how the draft is going to be going this Saturday. And then we're also going to talk a little about the storylines that you might want to watch out for going into league play. But yeah, we've had a good first week, guys. I hope you all enjoyed the Combine, either watching or casting it. Docky and Fire, I know you joined me for that. How was the experience for you guys?
I had a lot of fun being involved with the Combine stuff. It was good to see. I missed the last season, so I like being able to watch it in real time.
I mean, the only real part I had in it was feeding you guys the stats in the background, but that was really fun, and I'm looking forward to doing it during the season. But yeah, I think Arrow did a lot of the casting there. So Arrow, how's casting the Combine?
it was honestly very, very fun seeing how everyone was playing. I'm honestly just really, really excited for this next season.
Yeah, same here. I think we actually saw some really, really good from a bunch of players. In fact, I think we actually have a little bit of a video to show off for you guys. So
Oh no.
I think that's what we'll start with today, guys. Please enjoy this very, very cheesy, but also very, very good video made by Docky and Aerolax for the Combine. And yeah, that's the Combine stream in a big nutshell for you guys. A lot of really good goals scored there. Very impressive showings for a lot of the players, especially some of the lower ranked ones. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, yeah, we had some really great goals. That double by Vez, especially coming at the Champ 1 rank, was pretty insane. Really mechie plays by the upper ranks. Just well played all around.
Yeah, honestly, it felt like every single rank was just popping off in their own way, and that shows from just like the wide variety of ranks that we had in that montage.
Yeah, I have to agree. Big shout out, by the way, to Lightstar for gifting some subs over to a couple of people. Congrats on getting those, everybody, and very much appreciated for the support that you guys are giving us here at the RFDL desk, and just helping increase the production value more than I can alone. You know how that N8 production goes, guys. But yeah, so the Combine, in my opinion, I just want to know your guys' opinion, but in my opinion, for the Combine, I feel like the lower ranked players kind of outshine the higher ranked players a little bit. I feel like the plays that some of those lower ranked players like Vezix and Rue, boy Brian, were making, were just a little bit more like impressive to me, just because with the higher level that like players like Javian is like, it's like I expect him to make those sort of shots. And like Vezik's coming out with that double tap, I did not see that coming. I want to know what you guys thought about that.
I mean, in my opinion, it was definitely the tale of 2 days. Like, in that first day, you saw quite a few of the Champ 3s just popping off, and they kind of stole the show on that first day, with both Strawberry and Sam having very, very good days. And then on that second day, you saw both Baxis, Vezix, Brian, all of those C1s and Diamond 3s just showing up in really big ways for their team. But, yeah, what do you guys think?
I mean, the biggest thing is that this is beneficial to me, but I think to everyone that's doing the league, that's invested in the league, is there's a lot of players that I don't think I've ever actually seen play before. So I get to see the kind of skills they have, which is nice, and the kind of play styles they have, which is even better. And so a lot of players went from being general unknowns in the server to being kind of more sought after, which I think is kind of what we want, and it's just what the point of the Combine is. So I was definitely happy that that happened for sure.
Arrow, you got any thoughts?
I mean, all I can really say is nice shots, nice saves all around.
GG's even.
Yeah, GG's.
Yeah, GG. So I know I asked you a lot about this Arrow coming in as a
Oh dear.
like, so I know your biggest takeaway was like how to counter some of these players, because along with casting, you went in as a player opposed to us watching as managers. We were looking for potential pickups, but you were looking probably for potential teammates as well. Did you find anybody without, like, you know, you don't get to decide who your teammate is, but like for the managers out there, did you find anybody that you think would be a suitable teammate for you?
There were a couple players that I did vibe with fairly well, and like judging by the fact that on one of those days I saw, I think it was actually Fire, literally saying like the people that I was vibing with in chat, I feel like who I was playing well with was very, very apparent on any given day.
Yeah, it was actually like, it was kind of insane. I remember there was that one match where I think it was you, Factual, and Strawberry, if I remember correctly, where you guys were literally just popping off. It was really nice to see, but it definitely like makes you think in your head, how do I make this work as a team? But I mean, there's a lot of logistics there, as well as the whole draft, and we're going to be getting into the draft in a bit, but I still just want to, like, you know, ask around, like, is there any players that like really, really impressed you guys, like, overall? Because I was impressed by a couple of people in particular.
I say one of my notes here because I took a bunch. But yeah, definitely, I like opinion on who I think is more suitable has changed drastically after the draft, or after the Combine, I mean, yeah, Strawberry Sam specifically for that C3 spot. I think it went from being kind of Factual being one of the biggest names in that C3 to now not quite being the only option. Obviously, Liska played really well as well. So you kind of had Liska and Factual being the Season 0 returning C3s, but now you have the other two who didn't play last season, who are shown to be just as good as a pickup. So that for me, that's that mid C3 to C1 area. That entire field is a lot more interesting now, which is exciting.
And I mean, I guess personally, I want to give a huge shout out to Baxis,
Yeah,
who I believe was the only Diamond playing in the entire Combine stream, and yet was showing up constantly.
Oh yeah, he was so good. If there's one person I think that by, like, not necessarily close, but like by based off of like rank, it would. Even though I can't pronounce his name half the time, I just I have such a problem saying. You know what? I think it's fine. But yeah, no, I mean, for me, I would say Sam with that Drake combination. They were just killing it in that first day. And there was Baxis, Strawberry. As you said, the C3s I think are really good. And yeah, I can see I'm cutting out a little bit, so love those mic issues, guys, but don't worry about it. Hopefully that stops. I think I was just leaned back too far. I'm playing this real casual, guys. I'm just way too far away from my mic. I think it's working now. But Fire, what did you think? I know you didn't get to watch like everything, I don't think. Maybe you actually did. I'm not sure. But yeah, what was your thoughts?
So I guess the thing that surprised me the most out of all the ranks was watching the C1s come out, because I feel like that C1 group is so diverse in their playstyles. Just in the fact that you see like Vezix is a very just offensive, aggressive, heavy player. And then you also have players like Brian who are much more defensive, and a player like Brian might work out well more on a team with maybe a GC2 or GC3, while Vezix might work out better with maybe a GC2 or a GC3 that's a bit more passive and reserved in their playstyle. So it'll be interesting to see how the managers take that into account and what team compositions we're seeing in the next season.
So I have a quick question, because this is just something I thought about. Do you think that we'll ever see, so we kind of know, some of the good combinations now. Like, we saw, obviously we've seen Static and Factual before. We saw Drake and Sam. Do you think there will ever be a time where, a player comes in that we've never seen before, and they intentionally play bad in the Combine with a specific player, and then just go to a manager and be like, by the way, I play super well with this person, you should pick him? Because, think about it, the managers are going to want to cut off as many of those teams as possible. So if somebody picks Sam, you got to think somebody's picking Drake soon after. So do you mind game it a little bit? Do you try to cut him off?
I'm not quite sure about cutting them off necessarily, but I do believe that players that play well together in the Combine are going to shine more, just because of the adaptability that shows and the ability to be thrown in various team compositions and being able to shine regardless of who you're playing with. Because a lot of those combinations we were seeing were just people maybe never played together before. But Arrow, what do you think about that? Do you think that's more finding people that play well together, or players that are playing well together just being adaptable?
That's a very good question. I mean, I feel like throughout the Combine stream we were seeing a lot of examples of the chemistry that players already had. Biggest one that I saw was Drake and Sam, obviously, and as you mentioned before, with the possibly trying to mind game it, and block someone from picking up a team that already has chemistry. I feel like we might see a part of that, but I feel like it's not really going to be it's not going to be really a big thing, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
I just remembered somebody who kind of stood out to me. Is it okay if I mention that now?
Yeah, of course.
We kind of talked a lot about some of the lower ranked players that stood out, but Static going aggro mode was absolutely beautiful to see.
Terrifying.
That was absolutely terrifying, and if Static can just keep doing that, he's one to watch out for. He's scary. Gentle pause from last season too. Let's go. Hey yo, there's my teammate.
There you go.
Hashtag that's my teammate in chat. That was insane. The way Static just turned it on, between a kickoff of a goal being scored, basically that little moment, and then it's just full aggro, and then suddenly they were losing by 3 goals and now they're up by 1. I think he did that a couple of times, didn't he?
Yeah, he really did, and it was just the dichotomy of kind of seeing Static play much more rotational, much more defensive, and then just seeing him go full aggro almost at the drop of a dime there was something I've never seen him do before, and it was amazing. But Docky, you were about to say something?
I was say no. I mean, yeah, I agree. Reverb would be proud of that playstyle for sure. It's and we'll get more into for just the team stuff. We'll get more into I think the dynamics of the meta gaming that can happen for draft stuff. But I think there's going to be a lot of team chemistry picks that are going to happen. I think it's just natural. I think people are probably game planning around picking up teammates that work well together. So I think we'll see a lot of that. But I mean, it's also a draft, so you have to kind of anticipate you'll have to adapt sometimes. So that's also worth noting. It'll be fun, I think, all around. I think generally everyone has a chance to play well with each other. It's just how willing you are to try to make that work.
Yeah, honestly, like during the combine, there were like some like teams that got blown out, and it was like, okay, maybe they just had a bad game, maybe they don't work well as a team. But like most of the time, all of the players that were together were making it very close. And I mean, for one, you got a big shout out Rex and big shout out to the Vidar bot that he's made to actually kind of make those teams possible. And I know that we did have problems with a bunch of people getting paired up with the same people multiple times, but I mean, besides that, like every single time that people had different teammates, it was like they were all just vibing. They were all just playing really well, and it was still all close games for them.
Yeah, and I want to say from a player's perspective, I think I played like 10 or 11 games, and out of those, only in like 1 or 2 of them did I ever feel like, okay, this team composition isn't good. Like,
Yeah.
Pretty much every single time, pretty much all the players were able to adapt to what was going on, and it was amazing to see, because it made pretty much every single game competitive.
Yeah, and honestly, with that competitiveness, I mean, you just have the league to look forward to now. Because think about the league matches and think about how that could be every single match that goes forward. Like, imagine a world where we get to week 11 and every single series has been game 5.
Oh my goodness.
Like, my goodness, I think I calculated the amount of games that we could play throughout the entire league, with everything going the full distance, and I think it was over 900, almost to 1,000. So just imagine having to actually cast that many games and watch that many games of Rocket League.
Gosh.
We're in for a long season. But, you know what? You know what the season starts with, guys? It starts with the draft after the combine.
Yeah.
And so let's go ahead and switch topics a little bit. If you guys were here during the combine stream, we did say that for the podcast, we would go ahead and do some like tinkering with how the draft is, kind of predict where we see different players going, and we're gonna go ahead and talk about all of those. We're gonna go with the alphabetical order for the teams. So I believe the first talk about here is going to be Bad Dragon Squad, which is, and Yuki gets the last pick.
Oh my.
Jeez.
So that one's gonna be a bit interesting.
Fade.
Yeah, what's up?
Fade.
We couldn't
Big,
even
not
make
bad.
it to week. Big, not bad.
Did I say Bad Dragon
You
Squad?
did. You did.
Clement, Big not bad.
Not
Big
even
bad.
1 week.
We couldn't even make it to
Oh.
week 1.
It's so funny because
I
I think we were all
can't-
joking how long it would take.
I
It
can't
took
believe I
literally
just
0
did
seconds.
that. I can't believe I
It took
just
0
No,
seconds.
that was intentionally done by Firestreak, and so I'm blaming him. I'm blaming him.
I have done nothing.
This is your fault. You named the
No,
team.
That is
So
why
done.
we picked their hashtag. What the
Wait.
hashtag is big not bad.
Quick, end the stream.
Oh,
Oh,
Black
no.
Bunny.
No, we're back. Don't worry, guys. We're back. NA production all around. I can't. Okay, so if I did that during the podcast, how much am I going to do that during the league? Because I just wasn't
Every
thinking.
week, it's gonna be
Yeah,
almost.
every-
Oh, it's gonna-
That's gonna be bad. I can't believe I.
Yeah,
did
I
that.
feel like I have a prediction there, and hashtag Big Not Bad might be the most commonly used hashtag this season.
Honestly, probably.
See,
Yeah, for
Vezix,
sure.
this is why I'm going to say BDS. But no, let's talk about Team BDS in what we think their picks are going to be. As you can see, right here, guys. So I haven't seen any of these yet, so this is new for me. So it looks like I went Kilo Maxi Yuki, Maxi Kilo Yuki, Gala Maxi Kilo Yuki. Okay, so I think a lot of us had the same idea. Wants to talk about this?
I mean, I guess I can. Just because I think it's kind of interesting to see. Out of all of them, when I was making these, this was the most consistently picked team. So I feel like, I don't know what it is, but everyone is just on the same page with this one, with the exception being Daki going for a much more balanced approach, which is interesting to see.
Yeah.
But I feel like regardless of which two of the team compositions, if either of these two were to happen, they would both be pretty solid teams. So
yeah, and I will say real quick, the reason I have the exclamation point because I got tired of it. But if in our automated system, if you do not put the exclamation point after your name, it doesn't count them as a player, and it was really ticking me off because every time I would finish a draft, Yuki would be the last pick, and I would forget the exclamation point, and it wouldn't auto update, and my brain was like, why is it not working?
I know Yuki doesn't get the exclamation point. I don't get my dot. Neither does Gala. Or no punctuation.
But
No,
Aki,
Yuki.
so what makes your draft a little bit different from ours? You went with a lot more balance.
Yeah, okay, now I'm seeing this. I feel like you guys got some inside information that I must have missed out on because you guys all have the same team.
No.
Yeah, well, I mean, so Yuki's got the last pick, so they'll be able to put together that team in one fell swoop. So my assumption is that it's gonna really fall based on who gets picked prior. I don't know. GC1, GC2 is just like the most average team you can do with the way that the ranks sit right now. So it just makes the most sense for competitive. But I mean, obviously, if there's prior like desires, obviously, and then if those players are available, that's also a solid squad as well. So with you being able to pick yourself last doesn't really matter.
I don't know. I'm kind of surprised, honestly. This is just personally, but I'm surprised that you have Gala lasting at least till the last pick in the first round. But with how Gala played last season, I don't know if they're going to make it that far.
I feel like they will. And we can get more into this later. And again, unless there's more knowledge that I don't know about. It doesn't make sense that it would happen before, unless I think a couple managers might, but I don't have them doing that personally.
That's fair. All right. Well, I mean, I don't necessarily say that I have insider information, but I do know that I think that Yuki was also like, they signed up as maybe playing, but I mean, being the last pick, I feel like that kind of forces you into actually participating in the roster, because it's either you budget for yourself not playing, but you want a high-ranked player, so you have to budget and hope that a high-ranked player remains, or you just budget for yourself as the safe route. So I feel like it kind of sucks to be in the situation where you don't know if you want to play, but you get last pick, because you're kind of just forced to do it at that point.
Yeah, it makes the most sense too, just because you basically like allow yourself a free rank.
Yeah.
And you can game plan around that. You don't have to worry about yourself getting drafted by another team.
Oh, Yuki in chat saying, my rank will not affect my budget regardless of the first 2 rounds. Interesting. Also, I saw Taka saying, I just want my teammate on my team and we good. And we'll get to that one a little bit later, Taka, because I think we all have one player in particular that we think you're going to pick. But we got to go over to our next team. And our next team is going to be Hammer's team, bringing back the good old Black Bunny Gaming Squad from last season. You'll see that change real quick, but why did that show the wrong thing? Oh, well, don't worry about it. We'll fix it in post, guys. But yeah, so NA production. Obviously, this one going a little bit different for a few people here. And I want to hear what Firestreak and Daki have to say about their picks, because they are the same here.
Well, I can start. the C3C1 for NSSL is the best team I think you can field. It's basically the same as Black Bunny was last season with Gullah and Flock, so it's the ranks average to be about the same. They're extremely dominant last season with that format, and Factual and Heavenly obviously know each other really well. They've played a bunch, so there's already chemistry. So you're basically starting off with a head start on your team building. And that team would just be, would be insane. Heavenly's a fantastic second man to have at that lower rank, and Factual obviously defensive master, and also just all around good teammate. So that team just would be cracked.
Yeah, Docky, I really agree with you there. Heavenly, naturally, we saw Heavenly in the Combine. Heavenly had a really solid showing. Just probably the most just even, consistent offensive and defensive C1, at least in my opinion, from what we saw in the Combine. And then Factual, just really, really solid, especially on that defensive end, and can also snipe some pretty crazy shots. So, yeah, ultimately, really, I feel like that would be a really solid combo for Hammer, especially considering all the chaos that could potentially happen leading up to his pick going into the draft. So, yeah. But I see Arrow is calling the Hammer Gala getting reunited this draft. What you thinking there, Aerolax?
I'm thinking just from the dominant performance that Black Bunny Gaming had last season, I feel like it's just in your best interest to kind of try and go for at least a similar sort of team structure. So having Hammer and Gala on that team again would just really work. And Flock isn't in for this season, but I feel like Baxis, if I recall correctly, with how I budgeted it, I think, no, I didn't. But basically, I'm just thinking just like Baxis would be a really, really good fit for that team of Hammer and Gala, pretty much just always peppering shots on the offense, and Baxis, once again, as we said, just really, really solid. And I feel just having him as that third would just make a killer team.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess I'll talk about mine a little bit, because I said it before, but I don't think Gala is making it as far as you guys think Gala will make it into the draft. I have him being picked up by someone that you guys might not necessarily expect to pick up Gala, and I have just about that, but we'll talk about that when we get to whatever squad I think go on. But I think without having Gala there, I feel like Hammer's going to look for another person who is kind of like that Gala, who can be in the right position at the right time, score a lot of shots. And I think that's going to be Sam. He really showed off during the Combine that if you give him a good teammate that can get him some passes, he can put on some really good shots. And so I think that would work really well with Hammer. And then they need to find somebody who's going to be able to play a bit more backline. And because of how the draft picks go, by the time it goes to Hammer's next pick, not too many players will be picked, but maybe enough to maybe force a pick out of him. And I think it's going to be Cosmo. And I know we didn't see much of Cosmo during the draft, but that just means he's more of a wild card where he could turn out really, really well. Or, he could turn out to be, a Champ 1 as he is, they're all going to play like Champ 1s, but I'm trying to say it in a nice light. Like, obviously, they're all going to play like Champ 1s, they're Champ 1s, but some players have that potential to, go a bit higher when put with the right teammates, and maybe they find that with Cosmo on this team. That is good, and we won't know what to expect from that as managers or teams because we've never seen Cosmo play. So he's kind of that wild card factor that until you see him play in that first couple of weeks, you're not going to know what the team's play style is, and they can go in with that sort of advantage. So that's why I think that would be a good team for Hammer. But this isn't necessarily what I think a good team is. This is what I think the prediction for what he plans on. But I still think it's a good roster overall. I think all of these are pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, I'd be scared to see Hammer and Factual on the same team.
Yeah.
That is fair.
That would be
But
terrifying.
I'd also be scared to see like Hammer with anybody on it. Because it's Hammer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is Hammer. Yeah, that's completely fair.
Alright, well, let's move on to our next one, which is going to be my team, Claude9, going to be taking center stage here, and I want to see what you guys picked for this. Okay, so we have one of the same on every one of them, and we have a couple of different ones, and very, very interesting. I could put in my 2 cents, but I'll just let Aerolax start, I guess.
Yeah, because we have the exact same picks.
Yeah.
but for those that don't know, Devil and Golden are roommates, so they can definitely get up to some shenanigans, that is for sure, but they also have a ton of chemistry that I have seen firsthand. I've played with them, I think, only a couple times, but every
Oops.
single time it's like,
NA production guy.
Oh.
Oh, what
Bruh.
happened?
And that's on me. That's on me.
Aye.
NA production.
NA production.
As I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted. Yeah, just because they like actually live together, like I know for a fact that they play a lot together, and that's just gonna give you a lot of chemistry right at the start of the season, which is just something that you most definitely want. And I have also heard from Fade last season, I think it was during the mid-season tourney, when Devil was subbed in onto FoxClan, Fade really enjoyed playing with him. So that's why I'm thinking that, like, as we all put on there, Fade, we believe you're going to go with Devil as a pick, and I feel just putting Golden on that team as well would work really well.
That's fair. What about Docky? I'm very interested on your pick here.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same logic. It's just it's whether or not it's how hard I guess you're relying on them to work well on your team together. I mean, it makes the most sense, but you also have the chance to get a GC2 there instead of a GC1. So, it's kind of I was like a 50-50 chance. So like, okay, well, would Fade want to go with the ultra like min max, get a GC2 to fully fill the budget out, or try to like chemistry boost your team? And so in my head I was like, okay, well, I think the min-max would make more sense, but I knew that a lot of other people were going to go the Golden Devil combo, so I wanted to throw in a little bit of a curveball there.
Sorry, Fire. I just have one question, Docky. Out of all of the GC, obviously they're all great choices. Went with Meezer for my pick. Is this based off of like, is this just based off of who was left in the draft, or is this based off of any kind of evidence?
I think when I did my prediction, I think Meezer was the only GC2 left. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's not to disparage Meezer, obviously.
Oh, of course. No, he's a great pick. We saw what Combine. I think he'd be good on any. Okay, Fire. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're totally good. And I actually am kind of in the mindset that you kind of want to go with a static Devil and yourself combo. But in my draft, I did have static coming off of the board before you got to pick. So I was thinking, okay, so especially, not trying to give any spoilers, but with the timing of when static got picked, I think you would be kind of looking for somebody who plays a little bit similar to maybe a more aggro static, which I feel like Drake fits that bill pretty well based off of what we saw in the Combine. And I mean, as far as Angel / Devil goes, they were the go-to pick for a free agent last year for a reason. Whenever anybody needed a sub, I can attest that he is terrifying to play against because I needed to play against him like 5 weeks last season, and it kind of became a little bit of a meme on the Gentle Paw squad of we keep needing to play against Devil. He knows everything we're doing at this point, so. Yeah, absolutely terrifying player to play against, especially with the combo of Drake and Devil. I could see being very strong. And, I mean, Fade, you are nothing to scoff at either. Balanced, middle of the road squad, kind of like FoxClan was last year, and I think it would work out really well for you if you are able to get really any of these team compositions that we're seeing on screen.
I forgot that every single time somebody needed a sub last season, it was against Gentle Paws, which I don't know how it actually got to that point, but that was actually kind of funny because now that I'm remembering it, yeah, you guys had to play against them a lot, and I think that it's a good team. I will say Cookie Cat was the one that subbed in during, and that went decently. Our choose team was a bit lacking, but I don't think, for putting us against some really hard opponents. They were just absolutely on us half the time, so that was as good as we could hope for. But no, I think the Devil pick is something I would like to try for. Is it going to be stolen away from us? More than likely, but we'll see what the draft has in store for us. But these are some. I think any of these teams would be pretty strong. Let's move on to our next one, which is going to be Dignapause with Runeski as the manager. And I believe it is playing. So for once, you're not going to see Runeski on the draft prediction, as I think we all kind of knew they were not planning on playing. And I see that we all have one other player in common, and that being said, Runeski is the second pick of the draft, so we're I think we're all in consensus on who that first pick for them is going to be. And I mean, we didn't get to see Sylvie a lot during the Combine, basically at all, but we know how good of a player they are said to be, and so I think this is a no-brainer for at least that first pick. But we all have different everyone else, basically.
So, yeah. I mean, in terms of Sylvie, I mean, in my opinion, Sylvie is the strongest GC3 in the field right now, which is not to put any of the other GC3s down. They're all really good in their own right. But right Sylvie, Sylvie got, I think it was like only a few games off of SSL last season for a reason. Like, Sylvie is...
Yeah. That is completely fair.
Sylvie's an insane player, and I mean, the mech's on point, the game sense on point, play timing just on point. They are a steal, even at the GC3 rank. So, I mean, Arrow, what do you have to say? I
pretty much completely agree with that. Runeski has the second pick. So, and I'm very, very certain that Sylvie is going to be picked either first or second. That is, I said it jokingly, but I completely agree with you, Fire. Sylvie is by far, out of all of the players that we have, Sylvie's definitely the best pick. In terms of just raw skill.
Okay, and then going on from Sylvie a bit here, because Sylvie, clearly great player, but all the other picks, Vezek's getting picked as a kind of a sleeper, I feel like is pretty likely in this draft. Once you get down to maybe that late second round, early third round, I think that's going to be a really good value option, especially considering Vezek's just switched off of playing on Switch, which, I'm pretty vocal about it, but playing this game on Switch is torture. I don't know how he's done it for so long, but a great value pick, especially for somebody who just got a PC of all things. So not even going from Switch to console, but making that step up to PC, I think will turn out being really good for Vezix. So that's kind of why I put him in that little third round pick there, early third round. But then Voltac, very solid GC2 as well. I mean, Voltac was one of the later GC2s I had in my draft, but yeah, ultimately I think that would be a terrifying roster to go against in this draft. But yeah, Docky, what are you thinking there with the rest of your picks?
It's tough, right? Like, I think we all said the smart move would be to pick Sylvie first. And then as a non-play, so I think we have at minimum, or we have 9 player manager teams, and then we have at minimum 3 that are not going to play. And you're in kind of a really weird spot there because you don't really get to finalize your team until the very end. So it's a lot harder to game that. So you know, you can get, so in this case, right, we get the GC3. By the time it comes back to you, you're going to get your second pick, and I think in Runsky's case, Runsky's second. So by the time it goes all the way back down to Runsky kind of get a good idea of what they're going to be able to do. But the thing that makes this draft specifically interesting is that 2 of our non-player manager teams are back-to-back at the very beginning. So Cookie and Runsky are going to go what? Runsky, Cookie, Runsky. And it's going to be so hard to know who's going to be, like, if they both have the same idea, right, and there's only one option for that left, it's going to make things interesting. So I had the safer pick in mind of getting one of the GC1s and then going for the C2, because I don't think that's going to be taken by the time it comes back.
Right.
It seems to be more of a safe bet. And I think I had in mind Nacho as one of the last remaining GC1s. So it just made sense in my head, I guess.
Yeah, and also to let everybody else know who haven't actually seen, who might be confused a little bit on why Nacho's here. Nacho has been moved from a free agent to a player. They were a free agent at the time of the Combine, and we did see them play that one game. And then they didn't play anymore because at that time they were still a free agent. But we saw some opportunities for the draft to get kind of messed up near the end, and we were like, having another player like not Joe here, who's already signed up as a free agent, that would kind of fix almost all of the problems we were having. So we went and asked them, and they said, yeah, there'll be a player. So they are in the official draft now, which actually, I think, you know, it actually does pretty good. I'm sure they're going to find a team, because the one game that they did play in, they were playing really well. So I think that it was really nice of them to actually volunteer to put more time into the game and be one of those members on the draft. So more than likely going to get picked up. I like it. Now, Parallax, Kiki, and Heavenly. What's the thought process on that?
I mean, it's like looking at it once again, I do at least believe, especially with how Kiki was playing, that they're going to be chosen a little bit earlier than this, but I'm just kind of like thinking from like just a team perspective. Like, as we've said, Sylvie, very, very solid, but from playing with Kiki in the Combine stream, both with and against them, they are very, very fast and very, very mechanical, and it is terrifying to play with them. And I feel just the mix of both having Sylvie and Kiki on the same team allows Runesky to still have a ton of budget left over. And I have Heavenly thrown on there, but I believe they'd still have the budget to go for like a C2 as well, if that were possible. And basically just like that mixture of Sylvie and Kiki I feel is a very strong duo, while also leaving a little bit of room for that third.
Yeah, and Heavenly, definitely not a bad choice. I think that he's improved a lot over the last few months in general. So I think he's going to be a good pick.
Absolutely, Fade. I did not have a single draft where Heavenly fell all the way back down to Dignipaz. So definitely, if Heavenly does fall as far as to be able to be picked up by Runeski, I think that's a no-brainer for you, Runeski. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Fade.
Well, I was just going to, move on from Arilax's picks to explaining Drake and Vezix. I think that Drake and Sylvie is a team that would scare me. I think a lot of these teams are actually really scary when you think about it. We have a very big pool of highly mechanical players to pick from, and just putting 2 of them on any roster is going to be enough to scare anybody. But the glue that's going to bind them together, honestly, I think it's going to be that Vezix pick. He's got some pretty good rotations from what we saw in the Combine. He does seem to challenge a little bit early on some occasions, and I think that with some work with some higher level players, getting the rotations down and getting to get the experience of learning the exact places where he should go for demos, where we all know Vezix is really good at demos. Get him on the right mind track of, this is where I need to go for a demo to make sure the goal is open for my team. And then you put Sylvie and Drake on the same team, who are just going to be so high up in the air, just flip resetting on you. That team is disgusting. I think that it's a team that would be very hard to beat, especially we saw last season in Season 0 that very aggressive forward teams were kind of the meta going into the end stages of that season. And this team kind of just represents all of that in a nutshell. So that's why I think that would be a good team.
Something that I just saw in chat too.
Vezix.
Even when Vezix is maybe breaking rotation and maybe kind of putting himself in awkward spots, it's usually because he's still trying to do something productive and getting those bumps and demos. And I feel like that really aggressive playstyle can bode well with a player like Sylvie or Drake that are really mechy, because that can just open up all the space they need to just be able to go to work and really piece those mechs together to put some really scary shots on target, especially after a demo rings out and there's that open space to create those one-on-ones. And then, even his mechs too. Vezix also has some really impressive mechs for C1 to bring to the table. So,
and he did just say in chat he got to 30,000 demos earlier today. Excuse me? I don't think I even have 10,000. And I've been playing this game a lot. How are you getting 30,000 demos in this game? What? I'm sorry. I'm kind of speechless on that.
Oh, now I'm curious. Now you've got me checking how many demos I have.
Oh my god. Well, while he's checking demos, I think we should probably move on to the next teams.
Yep. I'm at 14,000.
So he has over double your demos, and I don't even know his playtime, so I can't really attest to that, but my god, does man love his demos. Okay, let's go ahead and move to the next one, or else we're going to be stuck on the demo talk for the next 5 hours. Up next is going to be Taka's team. Taka bringing back Fox Clan. And as I said earlier, I think we all have one of the same players for this guy. And I think it's obvious. It's Javian, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, he even
Javian
said in the chat, if I get my teammate, it's all good.
I mean, I feel like Javian is just the natural pick for Taka. Those two know each other. I feel like I do feel like both Arilax and Sylvie are going to be picked up before Javian, but I feel like that will just bode so well for Javian to be able to get that that Taka Javian combo going, and that's going to be a terrifying duo to go against, as I've said for a lot of teams.
I did
But
it again,
Taka and
guys.
Javian,
Don't worry.
they have
Stop pressing things.
Never.
they already have the chem together, and then I feel like backing that up with a player that can delay just long enough to let them go back when they're going for those team plays on offense with Brian would just bolster that team to a whole nother level. So, yeah. Docky, what do you think about that?
I mean, yeah, the in the budget it is a top heavy team, so there's that to account for. In threes, that is a bigger deal than it might seem on paper. So they will have to do a lot of scrimming and getting their teams together. But yeah, I mean, I feel like Taka's been pretty transparent about wanting Javian, so if that falls to him, I think he will, and it just makes sense. I mean, I think the two of them are fun, and even if they don't, they're not as successful as maybe they should be on paper. I feel like they'll just have a good time, which is I think what we want to see more than anything.
Oh yeah. I mean, first off, I mean, people are freaking out in chat over a Javian and Taka duo, and obviously, like, there's good reason to. I think they've won tournaments that I've hosted as a squad before. Like, they're insanely strong. But all I could say is if Javian does go to Taka, then you all have 10 other managers that you can blame for that, because Taka's all the way down in 11th pick, and we're still all predicting Javian makes it that far, which I think just says more about the other managers prioritizing their picks over allowing Javian to get onto Taka's team, which I think is good, but you never know, because there are some players in this draft that are a little bit more of a toss-up when it comes to first picks, and they could upset Taka with some bad news early on in the draft. But I honestly kind of really want to see this team, especially the one that I have. I think Javian with Taka and Heavenly to back them up, I think that would be such a good team.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, anybody else want to talk about theirs?
I feel like this one's pretty cut and dry.
So
Yeah.
I do have one question. Arrow, why did you choose Brian to be that third man for Taka and Javian?
I think it's solely. That's a good question. I think it was just because of yeah, because I did all of these predictions pretty much like right, like while the combine stream was so fresh in my head, and I was just kind of thinking just like with how Taka and Jay play together, I feel like Rude Boy Brian is going to be a fairly good match for them. And not only that, but also Rude Boy Brian being C1, that leaves the budget for Fox Clan at literally 0 by the end of it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Perfect. Yeah, Fade, go ahead, take it.
Well, I mean, I think Fox Clan was pretty easy to predict. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one, which will be Fire Streak's team. Gentle Paws, he's running it back. So let's see what the have to say about this one. Don't worry, no NA production this time. I have it under control. We are not going to switch back to the desk. But either way,
Are you sure?
yes. But okay, so looking here, it looks like Docky and Fire are on the same page, which for Docky,
yeah, they are.
that's
Jeez.
really nice, because Fire Streak definitely knows what he wants his team to be. And then, I mean, I think we're kind of close, Arrow. We just have different players in that second spot.
Yeah.
I mean, coming from the personal perspective, Strawberry, people might not know this, but Strawberry was my duo queue for twos about 2 seasons ago, I think now.
Ooh,
and so we do have a kind of chem already. We did run it pretty... We have the chem there, and then, you know, me and Arilax, I got the GC season 16 GC tourney tag with him. He got his red tag in that same tournament. Like,
Oh yeah.
the chem is there as well. There was a bunch of people on call for that, and it was an absolutely legendary run. But, you know, if the players, I could see both Airlax and Strawberry getting picked sooner than this. But if the opportunity arises itself, that would be a strong squad. I could get carried, so.
Yeah, because I will say, in the Combine stream, me and Strawberry was definitely one of the matchups that I saw was working very, very well.
You guys killed in those games.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, just honestly, like, now that you're saying that, Fire, like, you and Strawberry have Chem, you and me have Chem, and then me and Strawberry also playing really, really well together. That makes me just realize that would be a dangerous team.
I want to ask you, Arrow. I wanted to go with the exact same pick as you, but running back the entire Gentle Paws squad from last season, what do you I mean, obviously you predicted it. Do you think that's a good move? Because they're going to have so much chemistry from last season, too. Do you think that would play an impact at the start of league play?
I think it would be an impact in that they'd already have that chem, so it would, like, they'd already start off ahead. Of course, the thing, like, of course, the thing that I have to bring up is that they weren't performing too well in league play. However, I know both. I don't talk to Factual too much, but I know that both Static and Fire have been putting in the work to be a lot more aggressive players overall, and we were starting to see that at the end of league play last season. And I feel like kind of having every single player just kind of like taking a break from the team, kind of just working on their own playstyle, then all of them coming back. Like, it might take a little bit for that chemistry to come back, but when it does, I feel like it would change them from being the defensive team that we know them as to being just an absolute offensive powerhouse. Especially with how we saw Static playing in the Combine stream. It was absolutely terrifying to watch.
I think it is worth considering that last season the rank spread was a lot more bottom heavy, and this season is a lot more top heavy. So that might that has the potential, if they were to do that, which I don't, so I think would happen for I guess a couple reasons. I think that might come back to bite them, as some of the teams might be just generally outranking them.
Yeah, because I will say that is one of the two teams that I have with $150 left in the budget.
Yeah.
Which is a sizable amount.
Mm-hmm.
And I think moving on to what my pick was, I think that's kind of why I went with Shy as the second member instead of Factual, because while Static and Firestreak have been working on their offensive capabilities, I think having somebody that is really, like, more known for their offense would also help them, because they could play that offense on the attacking third when they need to, but we know that Static shines in his defensive roles, and Firestreak, to the most part, also did on the old Gentle Paws roster. But I think also having Shy there is just going to put a very solid attacker in the main line, and it would really help Static find a good place as, like, the middleman, who could move in between, like, attack and defense really smoothly, because they'd be able to get passes out of defense to Shy or Fire, and then move on to offense, and then they could rely on Shy to put in the shots. Meanwhile, they could stay back a little bit and play more of the defensive role as, like, the third man. I think that would go really well for the team. I don't necessarily know exactly if that's how it would go, because obviously I've never seen the trio play, so this is all speculation, but I think that would make a pretty good game strategy. But yeah,
I do not give away any of my secrets.
Yeah, Fire. As we saw Factual saying, we are predicting our own rosters, but this is mainly a prediction of who we would pick depending on the draft. We do go through the entire draft to get to these picks, so this isn't just us picking, like, the team we want. We're saying if these picks happen and these are the players that are remaining, this is who's going to get picked by said manager. So
Yeah,
it's not necessarily the ideal team that we want in any case, but it is the team that we think is more than likely to show up in the draft. So technically,
Yeah.
we might be revealing a little bit of our, tech, but we might, you never know. We might be, Firestreak might say Strawberry and Airlax, and then go Drake and Kiki.
Gala.
Or Gala. Yeah, like you could go either way with it, and it all really depends on the drafts. But let's go on to our next one, which is going to be Lumosity, which is Avid's team. And I'm very excited for Avid to even be participating in this. So the fact that we'll hopefully get to see him play is just big, and I mean, now we're seeing a couple of good picks here. Aerolax predicted yourself to be on his team. That's a bold choice. I like it.
Yeah. What do you want me to say about that exactly?
I mean, glaze yourself. I don't know.
Wow.
Aerolax, you're so good at the game. Why do you think Avid's gonna pick you?
Okay, fine. As Fire was saying, I think he was saying just like this. You kind of hinted at me being like the second best GC3 out of the, I believe, 5 that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it was 5.
And I haven't played with Vi's too much, but when we have played, I feel like we've had just like immediate chemistry right off the bat, and also just I feel like our vibes fit very, very well together. So I think really putting myself on that team was a combination of I feel like I'm going to get picked really quickly, as well as the fact that I know if I am on that team that we are going to vibe together very, very well. And like the only big issue that I saw with the team is that leaves a very small amount of budget for like other picks. I believe it actually makes it so you can only
go Diamond 3, right?
Yeah, you can only go Diamond 3 or Champ 1 after.
Yes, correct.
So assuming that Rue is Rue the Fuzzy, being there.
Yes.
Yes, Rue is Rue the Fuzzy there. I can confirm.
Yeah, because we're putting Brian as Brian.
Brian, yeah.
Yeah. And
So when
what?
I did, oh, go ahead, Errol.
Oh no, you go.
I was just saying when I put together my my draft prediction, I did not consider the Airlax pick by Vice. So that first pick by Vise, in my opinion, has the most potential to completely shake up other teams' rosters in this draft. And I think it would be very interesting to see how all the managers adapt and maybe try to still find rosters that they think would have good chem if Vise does go with Airlax. I do think that it would be more beneficial for him to choose a more balanced team, going with 2 GC1s, which is why I chose Gala and Golden, because I think Vise is likely going to go one of 2 ways, and that's either going to be going with somebody who's been around in the servers for a really long time, or I think he's going to have watched a ton of film from last season and choose somebody who stood out last season, which is why I chose Gala for that first pick from him. But yeah, Docky, I see you said Voltac. What's the reasoning behind that?
Well, if I could go back and change it, I probably would, but it's a little bit late for that. It's tough because Vice is probably the biggest wild card for me. I have genuinely no idea what he's planning on doing. So it made sense, I think, to go with another GC2 and then try to do not a super top heavy, but somewhat of a top heavy. Just giving you some more breathing room when it comes down to the second round. If you need to get a C1, that's fine, but there's probably going to be GC1 or C2. Sorry, I think left on the board at that point. So, yeah, it's kind of a toss-up between Voltec or Static. I think both of them are good, kind of similar players, and I think Devise would be good to play with them. So I think that would be a more fun team for him that's competitive at the same time, which I think is, if I had to guess, I'm going to say that's what he's going to do. But yeah, he's definitely one of the biggest wild cards for sure in this draft.
Yeah, wild card for sure. I think the big thing is that he's number 3 in the draft. So, like, he really does have the potential to pick somebody that nobody's expecting really early, and that could just cause a very big domino effect to happen.
Yeah.
And so, I did not consider the Aerolax pick either. And also, I do want to shout out Vezix there for saying the perfect team for him, which would be Avid, Drake, and then Drake again, because those guys mesh so well that just putting 2 Drakes on the team, it would be GG. They are the winners. But I don't know how he's going to approach this draft. Honestly, I think that if I could change my picks, kind of like Docky said, I would too, because the more I think about it, the more I think that he's not going to go for like... He's going to go for like a fun vibe. Like, he's not going to... Avid's the sort of player, he's not going to go play to win the whole thing, be super competitive about it. He's going to play to have a good time with good friends. And so, I think that first pick, an Aerolax, a Javian, a Drake, more than likely more Javian or Drake over Aerolax, in my opinion, just because I think they've been around him a bit more than Aerolax has. And then a third. But obviously, as you can see, I went with Gala and not Joe. And Gala, I think Gala is going to get picked pretty early. And I think that they would be a good player for Avid to team up with if they're trying to, you know, actually go for, like, a really good team. Not to say that anybody else he goes for isn't for a really good team. I just think Gala does fit with his playstyle. And I think Not Joe showed up in that one Combine game that they got to play, and I think that would help out a lot in attacking as well. And I think just putting the 3 together would make a really strong team that, would be able to upset quite a bit. So that's why I did that one. But as I said, I think that he's probably going to go with more of a fun, like, laid back, very chill, have a fun time every week roster. I wish I could see an Avid, Drake, and Javian team. That's way out of budget. But just think about the vibes on that one. Just think about that. Like, the vibes would be immaculate.
Right. I mean, that's partially why I said I'd almost want to change mine to Static, because Static and Vise together is just feels like it would be a good time. But yeah, for sure. I think the competitive but also chill vibe is the goal for him.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about our next team here, which is going to be featuring one of our other desk players. It is Docky's team, Awaptic Gaming, coming in here, and Docky, we will admit this first off, Docky already has kind of revealed his first pick to us. I think without any, I think with how the draft is going to go, there's no chance that he doesn't get this first pick. I can see that 3 of you guys are on the exact same page, and I am not. So, that's fair. That's all fair to you guys.
Oh, man.
Apparently, I was not informed.
So, to be fair, Fade, you had me picking up Shy before Docky would have been able to, which I'd assume would be the primary reason you would go with Kiki rather than Shy. But
Oops.
Oh, the button pushing.
what did Fade do?
It's a timer, guys. It's a timer, and I'm not pressing the button to stop the timer.
NA production, guys.
NA production, but don't
Very
worry,
much
guys,
NA
because
production.
guess
Good,
what?
we're hiding my secrets.
It's working,
This
and
is-
we're back. Gala, don't fade me. I'm a cat. My brain is working very slowly. We're for this.
I mean, all 3 of these players played together. I mean, what can you say?
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about this. Like,
Yeah,
they've played.
This is like the most boring out of all of it because I feel like I've been pretty transparent about that I would prefer to play with friends that like be competitive but just play well together and not like just kind of chill and have a good friendly time. Obviously T Park's a good friend of mine, and Shy is also a good friend of mine as well, so if they fall to me like that, I feel like that's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, for sure. I knew that as Fire said, I had Fire picking up Shy, as I thought they would be a good fit on Fire's team, and just because of that, I was like, okay, who's left for Docky to pick? And I think it was like one or two different GC1s, but I was like, Kiki played really well, and honestly, a lot of the time where Docky was casting Kiki in the Combine, it seemed like they were really impressed by their play style and their play in general, and so I thought, okay, Kiki could go on that roster. Seems to mesh well with that, so we'll give him that. So
Yeah, actually, unironically, I think that this is revealing myself a little bit, but at this point, I'm not too worried about people metagaming me. But yeah, I think Kiki is my like that. You're pretty spot on. I think Kiki would be about my second pick. Yeah.
yeah, well, we could stay on this one for a while, but I think Docky said it right. This one was the one that was kind of easy for us to pick. So let's go on to the next one, which honestly was another wild card, and I think hard for everyone. It's gonna be Rystall with Protogen Rebellion. First off, one of my favorite designs in the entire league, and also a pretty interesting team, and I think we all have... Okay, so some of us have the same members, but we are varying quite a bit on who some of these members are. So, whoever wants to start.
I feel like I can start because Rai was out here visiting while we were watching the Combine. But yeah, I feel like Rai has been around, and I've even seen Rai in in-house lobbies with Static, so she's already pretty familiar with Static, at least comparative to a lot of the other players in the league. So I feel like if Static falls to that 5th pick, it would make the most sense for her, especially when looking at how many different ways it could go in the later rounds of this draft. Having a GC2 just leaves open so many different possibilities, and I feel like it would just keep a lot of options open for her in the later rounds. But Static and Baxis, they know each other. They already know each other. That would be just a great vibe. And I mean, Melon, GC3 player, can do some really insane stuff. So I feel like that would be a really solid team for Rai to be able to pick up. But yeah, getting that first pick at Static just leaves a lot of options open for her, and I feel like that would be a good direction for her to go.
Yeah, I think I basically almost did the same thing as you, right? I think just with a different GC3. Yeah, it's kind of like two things. I think with who you said, Rai being familiar with Static, and I think if Static falls to Rai will probably do that. It just makes sense. And then I also, the same thing with you, Baxis. Picking up Baxis second just makes a lot of sense because I don't know if Baxis will make it to the 3rd round. And then I know we've kind of touched on this before, but Static wants that kind of more, like chiller vibe rather than like hyper competitive, like needs to win every game. And Baxis and Static would be the ultimate vibe, like the ultimate good, like good mental squad for sure. And then I picked Turtles last because I feel this is less on the. I mean, Turtles is obviously a goober, and so I don't think Turtles would make the vibe bad. But having Turtles available in that late in the 3rd round, I feel like it would be a crime not to pick him just because at that point I think he's super good. and having him be one of the remaining GC3s, like I would just, there's no way that I think you should not draft him if he's available.
Yeah, that makes a good point. Right. I think that he's going to be a very good pick. I think out of all of us, it looks like Aeroax is the odd one out with, I think, different picks than all three of us. Aeroax, how do you think this team gets formed, right? And it looks like a pretty strong team.
I mean, I should say I completely forgot about the fact that Rye would like already know Static. So like that kind of just didn't really cross my mind. But my kind of thought process behind it was Rye just picking up a fairly solid player in Drake, which leaves still quite a lot of budget to work around with. And I believe, Rye is 5th pick, which is still like sort of like middle of the pack for round 2. And if given the chance, I feel it's kind of a given that Drake and Sam are going to be on the same team.
Yeah.
And then just having Strawberry thrown on there as well, I feel would be a really, really good complement to the chemistry that Drake and Sam already have.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's Drake and Sam do make a really good combo. Strawberry is really up there in the attack, and I think they probably got some good chemistry with anybody that they play with based off of their style, so I think that could make a really... I went the same as Docky and and Fire for the most part. However, I have Voltec in there as a third, and I think I had Voltec in there just as a really good like middleman between the the attack heavy Melon and Baxis. I think Voltec plays a little bit more defensively, which I think would be good for the team. Just to, make sure that nothing gets past them on the front line. And having in my experience, having a higher ranked defender is always going to be a good idea, just because you can be more confident in playing that aggressive game when you know that you can be very confident in your teammate getting the save. So I think that Voltec's a really good choice. I actually think I have them first pick for Rye, because I think I don't know what their thought process is, but I think what I would do if I was in that situation where I know I'm not playing is I would go for a really good defensive line to start and then work on my attack as the draft goes on. Because there's always going to be plenty of good attackers, but defense is kind of tricky for some people, and you really want to make sure that you get that defense settled on really quick, just to make sure that you're not stuck with like 3 super aggro players who might just accidentally let the ball slip past them and then suddenly it's in their net, So that's where I kind of got my draft from on that one. But I think that all of these teams have some really good potential.
Fade, I think so as well. Do correct me if I'm wrong here, but we both put Melon in as that second round GC3 pick.
Yeah.
For Rye, I could really see her going either way between Melon and Turtles. I just had to choose one. And I honestly do not know which one she would choose out of those two, because they are both really solid players. I feel like Melon, I was kind of going for like the ultra vibey team here with Static, Melon, Baxis, because I feel like all those 3 players are just going to vibe out the whole season. But I do feel like Turtles would also be an extremely strong pick in this roster.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think Turtles is in a good situation because he played super well in the Combine. At the same time, though, just to remind everybody before we even get into league play and everything, the rules have changed a little bit depending on the region of the players that you pick. For instance, any team with an NA West player on it will not play on EU, and any team with a EU player on it will not play on the US Central servers. So I think something that the managers are going to be thinking about in their heads during the draft is maybe not, but they might think about which player to pick between a US West player or an EU player gives them the most advantage in server choice going forward in the league. Now, of course, this is something that, this is going to be those managers that really want to play, like, playing for the trophy, playing for the cup type thing. This is something very min-maxy, and I don't think a lot of managers are... But there is always the possibility of people picking one over the other just because of reach. And that's where Turtles is in a weird spot, because there's not a lot of EU players to pick from in this draft. And there's definitely a bit more NA West. So the question is do you force Turtles to never get to play on his home server? Or do you try to get it so Turtles is playing on his home server as much as possible? And I think that's the question that you have to kind of ask there for a lot of the EU players, including the managers that are going to be playing in Hammer and Joshi. So we're just going to have to see how that goes. But I think Turtles, either way, doesn't matter what server he's on, he's going to be a dangerous pick. Because he showed up during that Combine, and that's not the first time he's shown up in a Rocket League stream that I've done. He's very consistent. So any of these teams that pick a GC3, Turtles is a good replacement for any of them, too. But yeah, are we good on Protogen? Should we move to the next one?
I believe we're pretty square on that.
I think we all went over our choices. Okay, then we'll go on to our next one, which is going to be the last manager we think that isn't playing. It's going to be Cookie Cat and Persian 1 with the first choice in the draft, and I believe because of that we all have the same one. And I don't know if Cookie might... The thing about Cookie Cat is he is a very chaotic individual. He might throw a fast one on all of us and pick someone completely different than what we think his first pick is. But we do think his first pick, I think it's going to be Hayes. I think from what I've heard, they are friends. They've played together, so it makes the most sense. I think it would be extremely weird if they picked anybody else, but as I said, it's Cookie Cat we're talking about, guys.
Yeah, it's tough because I think that, in my opinion, Hayes does not get picked first by Cookie. I don't think Hayes will make it back to Cookie.
Fair.
So it's kind of a catch-22.
I did it again.
Oh.
We're back on this. I hate... I'm so interested in talking about this stuff that I forget that there's a timer that exists, guys. But then you get to see more of us. Is that really a big deal, guys? Is that really... Okay, well, back to version 1. Who cares about us?
And then I get to loop back to what I was talking about earlier when we were going over Runeski's team. They are first and second, and they're both not playing. So when it loops back, they will be at the end of the second round, at the beginning of the third round, picking their teams, and they can entirely change each other's strategies. So it's almost impossible to know exactly how that will go for them.
Yeah, that's fair. Aerolax, let's go to not Joe and Mazer. That is a very interesting combination. What's the thought process on that?
My thought process behind that, Hayes is GC1, and with how the budget works for this season, the sort of like most average ranked team you can have within budget is two GC1s and a GC2, and just given how the picks are going to work, because Cookie has the first pick in round 1, but then last pick in round 2 and first pick in round 3. I do admit, looking at it again, Meezer is most likely not going to get all the way to round 3, but with how the ranks are going to be spread out, I feel that Cookie is gonna kind of be forced into that sort of average team structure of having 2 GC1s and a GC2, just due to the fact that like you get first pick, but then your next 2 picks are going to be way after everyone else has picked a lot of players.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think that Cookie is in a very weird position for that too. Along with that, another person that's going to be in that same sort of situation a little bit is Roomski, because he's second pick. So not only is Cookie Cat going to be in that position, he's also going to be in a position where he can potentially cut off Roomski from specific choices, because he's going to get that last pick in second round and the first pick going into the third round, which might force Roomski into a third round pick that they might not have expected. That's one reason why I do think that we're going to see at least one of the C2s. As you guys know, we didn't see any of the C2s show up during the Combine. And I think because of that, we're going to see at least one of them, if not both of them, make it to that round 3. Or at least really close to it. And that's where I see Howl coming in. I think I'm a little bit different. I have Aerolax on my roster here. And I just think that this is it's a very, very low chance of happening. But I could see Aerolax going through as like a second round pick. But I'm still very much doubtful that Aerolax is even going to make it that. This is all like super speculative for my roster, but based off of the drafts that I did, that's where I saw him go.
I mean, on my draft, I had Miser and Kiki, which I think those are 2 players that I could see going extremely early in the draft, but I could also see them going extremely late in the draft. So they're just kind of the 2 that I saw maybe falling through to that late second round. But I honestly think one of those 2 is probably going to get picked up before then. But just in the way my draft worked out, those 2 were left over. And if they do fall that far, those are 2 really solid picks for Cookie. So Fade, how did you see Aerolax dropping that far?
I'm not
Actually,
gonna.
I want to ask that too.
The shade.
I'm not gonna lie. Look. I will pull it up right now. Where I had the. I can barely.
It seems
Gotcha.
it seems like it would be criminal if Protogen Rebellion can pick up Aerolax in the second round. It would be criminal for Rai to not pick up Aerolax in that slot, because I know Rai is the legendary Gold 3 manager in this draft. Kudos to Rai for taking on that manager position at that rank, by the way.
I know where it came from. So, in the draft where I got this specific team from, Rai picks up Drake first, which is a GC2. And along with that, when you get to Rai's second pick, it's lower in the second round. And you can't necessarily guarantee that you're going to get a lower ranked player for that third pick. So I had to have them pick lower and then pick higher in round 3. But that meant that Aerolax was still on the board. And so Cookie Cat got him round 2 and then immediately went to Howl to not allow Roomski to get a C2, because Howl was the last C2 in that draft as well. So just getting the higher rank pick kind of seems like a no-brainer to me. Obviously, that could go totally different way. Nobody knows how Howl is going to play, so we see them on a team. But yeah, there was reason behind it that made logical sense. That's all I can say. However, I still don't see it happening.
I mean, logical may be questioned by many people, but if Aerolax does somehow fall that far in the draft, that would be a steal for Cookie. I do agree. So, Fade, I think I think Cookie has gotten his screen time. Who do we got next?
Did Docky get to talk about his roster?
I mean, the roster that I picked. Again, it kind of like Fades is a little bit of a pipe dream. I don't think Sam will fall that far. And the way that I had mine set up, I think, because of the amount of top-heavy teams, there was the chance that a C3 fell down there. I guess I have Sam and Drake falling at the very end, which I just don't see happening. But
That'd
I mean,
be
obviously,
insane.
yeah, obviously if that is an option, that's a team you'd want. So it's a nice team to look at on paper, but I don't think it's gonna fall that way.
That's fair. Well, let's go on. We only have 2 more teams left, and then we're done with this segment. And I know we're already running past the time that we were actually playing, so maybe I need to allocate more time to the podcast. But either way, we're gonna get through all of this, guys. As long as it takes, it does not matter. Up next is Joshy Boy's team, Twisted Tails, and I'm gonna hit the button this time so we don't move back. But this one, I think we are all pretty knowledgeable on Joshy wanting to grab Liska as a first pick, and based off of who's picking before them, we don't think that anybody is going to steal that pick away. And I want to talk about that a little bit, because getting Liska on a team with Joshy means 2 EU players on the same team, and in a season that's going to be heavily dominated by NA servers, obviously they are kind of used to playing on much of an.
So the thing about that, I feel like, especially with those 2 players in particular, first, Joshy prefers USC servers for whatever reason. So I don't think it'll affect Joshy too much. Liska, we already saw how good they can do on USC servers last season. So I feel like we kind of know what to expect from those 2 players on, the USC servers. So I feel like they'll both handle NA servers very well. I think I have heard that Joshy really wants to pick up Liska in that first round, so that's why we all chose them in the first round. And then going into that second round, I think Joshy will have quite a few really solid options. Cosmo would be a great choice. I think purely if Joshy is to try to put together the absolute most min-max team possible, I think Vezix would be the right choice there. However, after seeing the interesting chemistry that Joshy and Vezix had when playing in some in-houses with those 2 the other day, I don't think Joshy would pick Vez, but yeah, that's why I went with Cosmo in that second round, which Cosmo is a very solid player to throw in there based off of what I've heard. But Docky, why did you put Vezix in that slot?
It's kind of like what you said. It's like min-maxed. It makes the most sense. I think we all agree, at least seemingly we all agree, that Liska is the best C3 in the draft right now. And so it makes sense to grab Liska first, and then it kind of just comes down to what you feel like would work really well. I think that team has the potential to be really, really good. Obviously, as we said, Mr. Ohio and Vezix do not have the best chemistry. But I think that can be worked out, but that would have to be agreed to be worked out, obviously, over the length of the season. So it's not. I don't think it's I don't think it's likely, but I could see it being a really, really solid squad. They would just have to come together on that for sure.
Well, according to the Vezix in chat, they would not work out. So I'll take it from him. I hear him constantly say Joshy likes to lose, wants to lose when he's on my team. So I don't necessarily know if that's necessarily the case, but I think that would make a very chaotic roster, and I don't think Liska would fit into it with that sort of chaos happening on the field. I thought that Rue might make a good choice, but it was also mainly because Rue is honestly on there because of a lack of option. Joshy is the 4th pick, which means he's going to be picking a little bit later into the 2nd round. And by the time I got to his pick, mainly all of the like C1s were basically gone except Bezix, and knowing the chaos that they would cause and the fact that Joshy most likely would not pick Bezix, I just went with the next available option, and that was Rue the Fuzzy. So yeah, that's kind of how I got my team. But Aerolax also showing that apparently him and Firestreak are on the same connection there.
Apparently so.
So, Arrow, what made you choose Cosmo in particular for that 2nd pick on Joshy's side of things?
I think that was mainly just because with how my picks worked, I already had half of the C1s picked before then. So I had a Vezix and Brian picked before then. So it was really just between sorry, I can't read. Yeah, it was between Cosmo and Heavenly, and I just feel that Cosmo would work just that little bit better on that team.
I do have to agree that I think, as much as, Heavenly has improved as a player, I also think that King is going to be very important on that one. And I think that with Joshy and Liska being on the same team, it's more than likely that they would be playing on EU servers a lot more than other teams. And so I think that finding somebody that's going to be able to deal with that ping difference is going to make a difference, because as a lot of players probably know, the higher level you kind of get in this game, the easier it is to deal with that ping. And you kind of need to make sure that you're picking a really good player who can, work around the laggy touches, the rubber banding that's going to come with playing on a server across the ocean from you. So Cosmo, I think, is kind of as I've said before for him, more of a wild card pick, because we don't really know how he's going to perform until we see them on the team. But it could be just what they need to kind of solidify their roster. So we'd have to wait and see what that does. But I think with that, we are on to our last team. And this is going to be picking 7th in the league. It's going to be Corrupt, representing X3 Tactic. And I already saw one of the hockey. But I think this one is going to be the one where it looks like we are the most disjointed as a group here. We all have Corrupt on there, and I think we all have two different players for this team. So I think this is very interesting.
So here's my theory with Corrupt. Last season, start of the season with iBuy, they really had a hard time those first 2 weeks when going with the GC2 and then I believe it was Diamond roster. And I feel like that might kind of shy Corrupt away from going from that divided of a roster again. I could see him potentially trying to pick up a couple of C3s, but in my draft, the only problem with that was there wasn't enough C3s in the draft to go back to his 2nd round. So personally, I feel like the best route for him is to go with a GC1 Champ 2, but I could also see him trying to sneak by with 2 C3s, because that would be a really solid and kind of a dangerous roster for him to go with. Sam, I mean, everyone saw Sam in the in the stream the other day, and Sam played really well. But there being only C2s and C1s left with no C3s, I had to go with Howl on that second pick. But yeah, Arilax, Vezix in the first round there. How do you think that would work out?
Okay, my main reasoning behind that is, like, as we've mentioned before, Vezix is very, very good at just being just full disruption of the other team. And we saw it a little bit last season, but Korup is insanely mechy. Just doesn't always show it in game. But I feel that with the disruption of Vezix, and then also Voltak being a very, very good complement to him as well, I feel would just let him shine, which would just up their offense so much, and make them just an absolute powerhouse of a team on offense.
All right, let's move over to Docky here. With this one, Maxi and Brian. So you also are going with the higher pick in a GC2 down to a lower pick with Corrupt. What was your thought on this?
It's tough because I don't think Corrupt's going to be able to do 2 C3s. I just don't. There's just not enough. So I don't think it would be smart to try to do that. So I'm just trying to think what would be the second best thing to do. I think Maxi's a good pick. I think they play well together, and I think they would play well together. So by the time it comes back to Corrupt in the second round, I think that Brian, I had is the best option. So it just kind of makes sense to do it that way. It's definitely safer.
Yeah.
Definitely the safer option, I think, too. Because if you were to do the 2 C3s, you would have to hope that one of the other teams doesn't try to get any C3s, and I just don't see that happening. I think just like logistically, it's just not a good idea to try to do the 2 C3s in a GC3. Even though that team is a pretty solid team to try to field, unfortunately we just don't have enough C3s for that to work.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same, but I did go with the C3 route either way. In a lot of my prediction different drafts that I was doing, there were some C3s that did stay a little bit longer. And so I kind of went with the 2 that I thought would fit the play style better. Have somebody that's more defensive, and then also have somebody that's more offensive to help out Corrupt. And for that, I think I kind of went with the same route that I did for Bry, and picking the defensive player first and then the offensive player second. And the offensive player, I was like, well, that could be any C3 that shows up. At that point, it was Strawberry, but I wanted to make sure that if Corrupt wanted to make sure he had a good backline, I think Factual did a really good job on Gentle Paws at maintaining the backline most of the time. He was able to stop a lot of shots even without the help of Static or Fire when he was taking that opportunity. And also the clutch factor of Factual in those low, 0-second comebacks, he really is good at just placing the shot exactly where he needs to at the final second. And I think that could be really good for Corrupt's team going into it. If they ever go down in a game and then Factual just pops off with 12 seconds left on the clock and scores the tying goal, it could be the difference between a series win and a loss, So that's kind of why I went with Factual for that first. And Strawberry is just a really good follow-up as a C3, but that would have to mean that they make it back. But only by picking 7th, it also means that he picks 5th in the draft for second round. And I don't know if we will see a lot of C3s getting picked that second round until later on. It was my kind of... that's kind of where I went with that one. And I think, honestly, I think that's it for the prediction. But yeah, guys, that was it for the prediction part of this stream. we've still got a little bit more to talk about, but time for you guys to be able to see our good old faces again here. Yes. And the last thing we kind of wanted to talk about tonight is going to be some storylines looking at the start of the draft. We might have some more storylines based off of the rosters that form next season, next Saturday, or this Saturday. But we'll get to those next week on our podcast. But I mean, there's quite a bit to talk about going into this draft. There's a lot of different. First off, I want to talk about Fire Streak a little bit because. Oh yeah.
One thing before storylines.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a slight change to
Oh yeah,
SSL
I do
that we
need
were
to
gonna
talk.
mention?
I do need to talk about that real quick. So, this was something that we were talking about a little bit this week. He did get contacted by some players, and they kind of revealed a little bit of some oversight left by the admins and budget, where the SSLs in particular were given. I'm trying to think of the right word. We kind of funneled them down a little bit too much to the point where the best team rank-wise that an SSL can get from this draft does not equate to the same skill level that like a GC3 could get or any other rank below them. And we did the math on this and it checks out. And the people that contacted us also did the math to kind of show us, hey, this is kind of, it's a very minimal gap, but there is still a gap. And we do want to rectify that. Because of that, it decided that for the draft, prices are going to remain the same. However, the rule after the draft is that there is a 4-week roster lock where you have to play with the roster that you have. Obviously, if you need a sub, you can do that for any external reasons. So if you're not available to play, you can still sub in. But the rule is that you cannot move out members of your main roster for like free agents or anything. You can just have the sub. We have decided that at the end of that roster lock period, what we're going to do to kind of help the SSLs out a bit, if we do find that they're in this situation where their teams just aren't performing up to the standard because they weren't allowed to draft a team that everyone else could draft, we're going to lower down the SSL price by $50, which will allow them to pick up a rank higher than what they currently have. So, if they replaced out a C1, they'd be able to pick a C2. If they move out a C3, they could pick up, I believe, a GC1, but only barely.
Yeah, it depends.
It very much depends on the rest of their draft. But for the most part, the biggest change would be a C1 could be moved out for a C2, and that would just help to strengthen their roster if they're having like a bad start to the season, because we weren't giving them the choice earlier. And we don't want to make a choice right now because we're literally 3 days away from the draft, and we don't want to cause mass panic between all the managers trying to figure out how that changes the draft, because it actually does change the draft in a bit of a big way from what we had went over. So after the 4 weeks, SSL price will move down by 50, and that's going to be that. So we'll see what that does coming up into that roster lock period and what that does after. And based off of the results that we see, it might impact how we look at pricing a little bit better for the next season when Season 2 comes along. Because there's going to be a Season 2. But now that we've discussed that, let's move on to a bit of the storylines going on to this, because this was something I was excited to talk about. Fire Streak, technically you are the only returning manager to come back and pick your same team again. Was there a specific reason for that? Because you guys made some really good logos this season for a lot of these teams, and yet you still decided to go Gentle Paws. So the storyline basically is to see if you can recreate the magic that you had with Gentle Paws last season with going from lower in the standings all the way into playoffs into top 4, do you think that you can do that again? And I just want to know why you decided Gentle Pause again.
I mean, Gentle Pause last season, I feel like was one of those teams that just everyone loved to see play. The vibes were just on point with the team, and even after looking over all the new teams that we made, I kept looking back at Gentle Pause, and I was like, okay, we're running it back this year. And I mean, definitely going to try to keep a good, just like vibey team this season, because the vibes were on point last season, and you know, we're trying to make a big return and hopefully be able to secure a little bit of a better seeding going into playoffs this season. So that's the goal. I mean, other than that, really no reason to it. Just Gentle Pause is goated. What can I say?
True.
I like the answer. What do you guys think? Like, are you guys kind of surprised that some of the managers came back but did not pick the respective teams that they played with before? Like, I think people thought that I was going to come back and do Fox Clan again. Obviously,
Yeah.
I didn't do that. Are you guys, like, surprised by some of the managers?
I'd say everyone except for I think I did predict Joshi to go back to Kitten Corp, but other than that, I mean, Yuki picking Big Dragon Squad that just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
I think Taka going back to Fox Clan also makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's also a big one, is Taka going back to Fox Clan.
I mean, the only thing I have to say about the teams this season, if we get another season with no Foxes on Fox Clan, I'm going to personally be very upset. So, Taka, I hope you're listening there. You better pick up a Fox, okay?
What if he just makes himself a Fox Sona?
There you go.
That is also acceptable. Become one of us, Taka.
Alright, well, that kind of does lead on to another one of my storylines, and it's not a huge storyline, but it will create some very interesting matchups for the next season. And that is that all of the players from Fox Clan, me, Yuki, and Taka, signed up as managers this time, so we can't be on the same team anymore, and in fact, we're most likely going to be playing against each other going into RFDL Season 1. And I think that's going to create some really, really interesting matchups, as we kind of, over the season, we kind of seen each other's playstyles long enough to know what to expect from each other. I think that's going to make the matchups a lot closer, and it's really going to put to the test how we kind of manage our rosters and kind of coach them on these different teams to try and counteract them. I think it's going to make a really good storyline, and I just, I want to know what you guys think about it. Like, if it's going to make a big impact on some of the games or not.
The manufactured beef of all of the old Fox Clan members going at each other. I mean, I think it says a lot about the team you guys fielded last season, and that clearly you guys all wanted to kind of take on that manager role at the same time, which I think is cool. I think spreading that positive energy will be good for the league all around. So I'm definitely excited to see how that pans out.
I mean, I think all of you three are very familiar with each other's playstyles at this point. That can make, at least I'm hoping, that'll make some of the most competitive matchups that we see this season. I could see some really great games being played against each other from the old Fox Clan team. So, I mean, I don't think it'll have make a huge difference in terms of who's chosen by the different teams or necessarily the play styles that they go for on their teams, but I think it will still make for some very entertaining matchups.
Arrow?
But yeah, Arrow, what are you feeling there?
I'm awake, guys. Sorry. Yeah. Honestly, like, I kind of want to extend that to like not just Fox Clan, but like any former teammates as a whole, because like we had pretty much just the entirety of last season to figure out how, like, you had the entirety of last season to figure out how your teammates played. Now going up against them, you're gonna pretty much just like know how they play, and you'll kind of already have an idea on how to counter that, which I feel will just automatically make the games just so much more competitive and so much more close, just because there are so many different pairings that have that sort of insight on one another that can most definitely be taken advantage of.
Yeah, I think we also have Joshi and Daki, who were originally on Kitten Corp doing the exact same thing. And I think those are, I don't think anybody else, well, I guess, no, because we don't have Rex, so, Arrow, you're kind of, well, you're not even a manager, so you don't count. But Fire,
but there is a chance that I don't get on a team with Liska.
that is fair, that is fair.
That's probably going to happen, yeah.
I do think that a lot of the old pairings are going to be moved away from this draft, and that is very exciting, because as you go in to face that team, you kind of know what to expect, and I think it's going to be really good.
Yeah. And that, like, that kind of made me think something that might be a little bit interesting is if we have, like, sort of like a dominant team as we did with, like, Black Money Gaming last season, there is a chance of possibly even 3 different players being former teammates to players on other teams. So those 3 other teams would have already an insight on how to beat them, or at the very least how to beat one of the players.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be really good. That would watch an anti-Gentle Paws squad come out with Factual and Static being on like different teams, so 2 teams know how to deal with Fire, or they end up on the same team and Fire's like, oh well, I know how to take these guys down.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of dominance, we have one other storyline that I want to talk about today, and it has to do with a singular player, and that is going to be Hammer Saints. Obviously, at the end of the season, they didn't really get the playoffs they were hoping for, as Hammer did have like some PC issues and wasn't able to play in the playoffs at all. But before the playoffs, Hammer was literally the top of every single category. And we all know that last season we had some serious problems with ranks and players being on a little bit overpowered teams. And my question to you guys is, with the ranks more distributed fairly among players and with the rank ceiling much higher in this draft, allowing for stronger teams, do you guys think that Hammer is going to be able to have such a dominant performance going into the season? That's a storyline that we're going to be following all season probably, because as we said before, it is Hammer. Hammer is a great player. We are all scared of him. But is he going to be able to dominate as hard as he did on his old squad with all the teams being stacked with higher level players now?
So,
No.
I mean, here's the thing with Hammer from last season. Hammer could have, I know points isn't everything, but like, even if, let's say Hammer gets like 1 less goal per game, he is still in the conversation for being one of, if not the best players in the league. So I feel that even with the league being a bit more competitive and the ranks being a bit more accurate this season, that Hammer's still going to be a force to be reckoned with. Hammer, like, he's Hammer. We saw what he can do. He really just has no real glaring weaknesses this season. So, I mean, I think he's still going to be the same Hammer that we know from last season. So, Docky, what were you going to say?
I mean, yeah, it's I think both our SSL players will have the same kind of expectations. It's tough because, actually, no, it's kind of perfect. The way that the budget has worked itself out, I think this season almost is ideal. That team that Hammer had last season of the C3 GC or C3 C1, but the GC3 technically, even with Hammer being an SSL now, is still possible. And while the ranks are more competitive now, instead of it being, they had a goal differential of like 35?
It was a lot.
Yeah, throughout the league. It won't be as intense, but they definitely still have the ability to win a lot of games. It'll just be more competitive. I don't think they'll have as clear of a lead in the league play. So, yeah, they definitely can do that again, and I think they probably will. I think both Hammer and Joshi have the potential to do that.
Era, what are you feeling about that? How much of a impact? Because I mean, on average, compared to last season, the SSLs are going to need to have a player of one rank below on their team of what they were able to get last season. So, Arrow, yeah, what are you feeling there?
I mean, my argument is that they're SSL.
Yeah.
They're the highest rank in the game there, so
Yeah.
like, I mean, like personally, like, well, no, like not personally, because I know a lot of other people like know this, but like the elevation of skill is like the gap of skill is exponential as you go up, and kind of having like that sort of gap, I feel wouldn't be too detrimental. It's really, I feel like really it just comes down to how just the team as a whole plays.
Yeah, that is fair. And just because I was curious, I did go to check. Hammer's team had a goal differential at the end of last season play of 53.
Jesus.
Which,
Jeez.
53 above, yeah, that's just insane. I don't really...
That is insane. But I think that kind of like goes to it where like they have the ability to basically field, or at least on paper, a rank team of similar to that, even with him being listed as SSL instead of GC3. And I think with some of the players in the pool, I think Hammer could field a team that gets him the ball and plays well around him, so that he can have that similar performance again. It will be more competitive, so I don't think we'll see the same plus 50 plus goal differential, but they'll definitely be able to win and I think perform pretty well. So
yeah, I have to. Well, guys, we have definitely gone a little bit past time by quite a bit, so we're probably going to allocate out. I can't even talk, it's that late now. I'm probably going to allocate more time to these in the future, probably like an extra half hour to 45 minutes. So they will start earlier. But, I mean, I love to say it during RFDL streams, but there's only one thing we can do at this point. And that is to wait till Saturday and see exactly what these guys choose. And I don't know about you, but I'm so excited to get this league started. And we're almost there. We've been counting the days. We got a draft. We've got one more week of waiting. And then we get into the nitty-gritty of it all. We get into league play. And we find out exactly how these teams are going to perform. And Aerolax says it the best. I'm ready for some good Rocket League.
Yeah.
that's gonna be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, well.
Any final thoughts before we end off tonight, guys?
I mean, let's get the season started.
Yeah. That's really all we can say.
Okay, well, with that, guys, I thank you all for staying up so late and watching with us. Remember, guys, that the draft is going to be on Saturday at 4 p.m. EST. So go into Google, type in 4 p.m. EST to whatever your time zone is, and you'll find out the time of that. All the managers are going to be here. Our picks are going to start not too long after 4. So try to be here if you're a player, if you want to see where you're getting drafted. It's a very high likelihood that most, if not, I don't think every player is going to be drafted, but I think at the end, we're going to have like 2 or 3 players that did not. So your chances are high. So make sure to be watching the stream on Saturday. I'm sure if you don't, you're going to get pinged by your teammates pretty quickly afterwards. But Hope you all have a good night. Thanks again for watching, and we will see you guys on Saturday for the RFDL Season 1 Draft. We'll see you later.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Don't wait too long. Feelings they run. I know it's hard. We'll win this time. Don't wait too long. Feelings they run. I know it's hard.